On a normal evening in 2009, a man gets home from work and boots up his computer. His name is Markus Persson, but he often goes by his screen name, Notch. Based in Stockholm, Sweden, Persson spends his evenings developing passion projects, fun coding exercises that sometimes end up as completed video games, but more typically become abandoned after a short time. But what he doesn't know is that the file he starts today will change the gaming industry forever and will make him one of the wealthiest Swedes in the world. This is the making of Minecraft. In the very beginning, the game that Persson was creating wasn't called Minecraft. It was called Ruby Dung, based on the two main elements of the game, the Ruby lands and the dungeons.
It's going to be a fantasy group manager. You don't actually do any quests yourself, but rather assemble, equip and level up heroes, and send them on quests you gotten from the local town.
Persson created a texture atlas, which is essentially one large image file that contains lots of smaller textures. Initially, this atlas only contained two textures, grass and cobblestone. Using these elements, he created a digital landscape filled with trees. Next up, Persson wanted to implement a first-person view of the heroes going on their quests. But quickly he realized that it was becoming too pixelated and blurry. Frustrated that he couldn't get all of the features just quite right, Persson scrapped the idea, not realizing that he had just created the first prototype for what would later become Minecraft. One major limitation was that he could only work on his games during the limited free time after his day job. He worked as a programmer at Midas Player, the Swedish game developers that would later go on to create Candy Crush. However, his bosses at Midas Player were unsupportive of Persson's hobby. And once they discovered that he was making his own games in his free time, they felt that there was a competing interest, and they barred him from continuing making his own games. But Persson couldn't be stopped. Rather than comply, he decided to quit his job in order to continue working on his own passion projects. And he found a new job with the software company J-Album, where he befriended the CEO, Carl Manne. J-Album was not a game studio, but a company that made digital photo album software. And Carl Manne not only didn't mind what Persson did in his free time, but instead, he actively encouraged him to continue designing games. At this point, Ruby Dung still sat on the shelf. A scrap project with little more development. That is until April 2009, when Persson came across a new game that would change everything for him. The game was called Infiniminer. Infiniminer is a multiplayer game where players team up against other players to dig blocks in search of minerals. As blocks are dug up, they can then be used to create structures to impede other teams. Though the objective of the game was to mine up more minerals than your opponents, players quickly abandoned that goal and instead realized it was much more fun to just build things. But despite the game's enormous potential, its development was plagued with difficulties. Zachary Barth, the original creator of Infiniminer, had intended to create a large network of players, but with the game's code constantly being modified and rewritten, the game soon fragmented its user base as the different versions of the game weren't compatible with each other. Frustrated, Barth decided to abandon the project as a whole, and the game's code became open source. The first time Persson tried Infiniminer, he immediately had an epiphany that this was the game he wanted to do, and he had lots of ideas of how he could make it better. He sat back down with the previously abandoned Ruby Dung and got to work tweaking it into the new vision he had in his head. Reusing his existing textures, Persson took a full weekend to rework some of the coding and art style. He called his creation Cave Game, and with just a little more work, it moved from just a test to a working prototype. Now, all he needed were players, and he had a plan for where he could get some early testers. Just a few weeks prior, Persson joined an online indie game forum called TIG Source. Here, developers can receive feedback from other developers on games they are creating. Persson began discussing with others in the community, who quickly suggested a new name for the project: Minecraft: Order of the Stone, named for the two actions you could do in the game, mining and crafting, though Persson would later drop the subtitle from the name. He then decided that this forum would be the best place to start getting early players and have some immediate feedback for how he could continue developing the game. And so, on May 17, 2009, he shared the first link that would allow others in the forum to begin playtesting the game.
Minecraft. It's an alpha version, so there might be some crashes.
Just 12 minutes after he posted the link, the first person provides feedback.
Oh hell, that's pretty cool. I just dig around in the ground a bit and suddenly I'm in this underground cave. Great sense of exploration already.
Just 3 minutes later, the next reply.
The animations are fantastic. It's generally really derivative at the moment of Infiniminer.
Quickly, more and more people are downloading, providing feedback, and, above all, praise. And though the forum was made for feedback, players couldn't resist posting the things they have made. And since people were showing off screenshots of their creations, more and more people were encouraged to jump in and give it a try themselves. The community also had plenty of feedback for features that could make Minecraft even better, and Persson was on it, updating his blog nearly every day with the progress he was making on adding many of the ideas presented.
I plan on having several game modes: creative, survival, team survival, a fortress.
Though players were consistently finding the gameplay addicting, in this early stage there was no way to save what they had built. There was also no way to play with friends or to play on maps that others had created. Persson would often sit down with the intention to add these commonly requested elements to Minecraft.